Welcome back to Grassroots Media, and welcome back to this morning's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. Once again, I'm your host, Tyler, here with co-host this week, Mark Brooks. Mark, good to have you back this week. How you doing this morning?
Good to be back.
It's the best time of the year. We had playoff football last night. Unfortunately, didn't fare well for a lot of teams within the county. Last year, we kind of got spoiled. We had 3 teams throughout the city and the county advance to the second round. Only had one this year, unfortunately, and it was the Greeneville Green Devils. But a great showing by them once again with a 48-14 win over Fulton. You were privileged enough to have that game at Burley Stadium last night. Talk about what you were able to see in that game.
Oh Lord, it was a defensive ball game. It wasn't a defensive struggle, but Greeneville's defense really just stepped up on a very fast, very explosive team. You look at Fulton, they were 2-8, but look at the conference they played in. You know, they had some really close ball games during the year.
That's what I was going to say. Look at their average.
Right. And, they're 6-time state champions.
Yeah.
So
they've had some classic battles.
Right. They're no slouch. Greeneville and Fulton's actual first game was in 1964 at Greeneville at the old Tobacco Burley Bowl.
Wow.
And Greeneville won that game 12-7. Of course.
Those are some of the scores you had back then.
Yeah. Well, I would have never known that. But Fulton brought a press release with them, and I got one at home, and it had some really good history of their school playing against Greeneville and stuff throughout the years. And as you look at it, they were kind of a thorn in Greeneville's side in the early 2010-11 era when Greeneville was winning state titles. They were winning state titles. So they were kind of like the thorn in each other's side. So I guess it's a playoff rivalry because the two teams have never met.
In the regular season.
Never met in the regular season.
But it's fun to see them in playoff times because I remember what you're talking about, too. That was around the time that I started high school, and that was when I was in middle school was when Greeneville was winning those state championships. And then as I go into high school, that's when Fulton started winning a few more. And they'd have those classic battles in that little window right there, that little time frame where they'd meet each other in the playoffs. And it was always the game that you looked forward to, like who's Greeneville got this week. They've got Fulton, and you start paying attention a little bit more. And it's been first round the past couple of seasons now, and Greeneville's got the better of them. But I want to give credit to Fulton, too. Have you seen many teams hold Greeneville to under 300 yards this year?
Well, I looked at that, and that the stats are kind of exaggerated. Because Greeneville had 2 defensive touchdowns. One of them was a gift. I have never.
Let's talk about that.
I've been watching football since the 1960s, and I have never ever in my life seen a team go into punt formation without a punter.
Miscommunication, maybe.
I know what the word I want to use is, but we're on the air and I can't use it.
Fair enough.
But I don't know. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was an injury. Maybe it was just a oops. Maybe it was something they were trying to do. I thought, after I saw the play, they were in punt formation, and I looked over. They got the 3 guys standing there, but the safety guys guarding the punter. And usually when they snap the ball, one of them twists sideways, and the snap goes in between. The punter kicks the ball and kicks it away. So I'm looking through my binoculars because I'm seeing something is not right here. Well, I see the guy move, and the ball go through, and I get up, so I pull my binoculars down, and I look, and the ball's just dancing around the 7 or 8 yard line there. And Zach Crispin just picks it up and walks into the end zone, and there wasn't a player within 20 yards of him from either team.
Easiest touchdown you'll ever have in your life.
I don't know if it was the easiest one, but it was I don't want to call it ugly. So I'm running through my mind, what were they doing? Were they trying to get a safety maybe? But no, the ball was on the 30, 35 yard line. So they weren't trying to get a safety.
But why would you try to give yourself a safety?
Well, that's why it's called a safety, is so you can snap the ball out of bounds and give up 2 points and not get hurt, on the field. Not an injury, but not hurt your score a lot. And you get a free kick afterwards. So I just couldn't figure it out. And I just had to come up with it and said it was a dumb play.
It was,
and I guess every team has one of those every now and then.
Yeah, I read that in your article this morning. I tried to wrap my head around it, and I mean, it's exactly what you said. That's exactly what I pictured too. Was just you snap it, nobody's back there, and there's just a ball floating around, and somebody's got to go grab it, and it's exactly what Zach Chrisman did. Credit to him. He was paying attention, scored a touchdown, and sometimes that's what you get paid off with.
Well,
you pay attention
I
sometimes.
asked Zach after the game, I said, "What happened on that punt?" And he said, "Man, I don't know." He said, "We just looked up." He said there was no punter there, and he was like, "No, this can't be happening." And he said, "Of course, we're not going to say anything."
Yeah.
He said, "But they noticed it. And everybody, the fans noticed it. Everybody noticed it, except the punter."
I don't know.
And the snapper. The snapper didn't know it. I would love to talk to the coach and find out what happened with that.
That's one thing we may never know. We probably won't ever find out.
We'll probably never find out why.
Yep. We probably will never find out why that happened, but let's talk about their offense a little bit now.
Well, offense was doing okay. Offense, they ran the ball decent. They ran the ball with basically three running backs. Of course,
Quillen, Dixon, Myers.
Quillen, Dixon, and Myers, yeah. They all had 60, 70 yards. They were running the ball really well. The offense was going okay. They had the short field about every time. A lot of the kickoffs, they were short kickoffs, so they were fielding the ball to 20 and getting a 30-yard run back to the 50. So they started with a short field each time. If they started at all, because sometimes they got there were two defensive touchdowns. So they didn't really hold Greeneville to low yardage.
Yeah.
They can.
It's one of those things where it looks good on paper, but when you look back at it, a lot of the yardage was probably gained on kickoffs. A lot of the points, or some of the points, were on defense, special teams.
Yeah, Hayden Goad, he jumped
Pick six.
He jumped a route there, right around midfield. Well, the thing was, I don't know if he was setting it up or not, but it looked like they were picking on him on his side. And there was probably a couple of different plays that went to his side that picked up pretty good yardage. Now again, this is an elusive football team. These guys, they're 2-8, but they were no slouch. They were an elusive football team, and they weren't picking up chunk yardage, but they were moving at the ball. They weren't really moving the ball well, but they were moving it. And I guess Hayden had enough of it and just jumped a route and
took it home.
It was. I think it was 55, 56 yards. Very, very, very good interception. I think he's had a couple of those interceptions.
I remember one for sure.
I don't know if this is his first pick six or his second one.
He's had a few interceptions.
He's had a few interceptions.
I remember he had one in Alcoa.
And he's had some good pass breakups. Yeah, he did have an interception at Alcoa, but that one didn't count. That one does not count.
That's correct.
I
understand what you're saying now. That one technically doesn't count due to that rule, but
that's a dumb rule.
I agree. I wish things were different in that regard, but can't do anything about that.
And I think if it wasn't for that dumb rule, because Carson Quillen lost 2 touchdowns at Dobbins Bennett.
Yes, and he lost one against Alcoa.
He could have 3 more touchdowns, several more yards. He had a couple of good kickoff returns at Dobbins Bennett. I think that's what kept him out of Nashville for the Mr. Football finalist.
Could have been. We saw those were released this week. No area kids this year. We've had a few area kids the last 5, 6, 7 years. None this year, though. We'll take a break off of it. Fascinating thing that I wanted to mention real quick, too. You look at Greeneville's touchdowns. Of course, you have Zach Chrisman's touchdown on the botched punt. You have Hayden Goad's pick 6. Every other play outside of that, they weren't really long touchdown plays. They were set up by long runs.
Yes, they were.
And then we
had a 30-yard run. We
did have a 30, but you had a 1 yard, a 1 yard, a 6 yard, a 7 yard, and a 30 yard. So you have that 130. But usually in Greeneville games where the score is as lopsided as it was, you see long touchdown runs. But it was kind of fascinating how in this game they were set up by the long touchdown runs, and then you were able to score on the shorter runs.
Again, we're getting deeper and deeper in the year where only the good teams are left.
Mm-hmm. You're there for a reason. You're one of the best 32.
They're there for a reason. Again, they're 2-8, but that was not a 2-8 football team.
No.
It was not a 2-8 football. You put that team in Greeneville's conference, and they probably will finish second, maybe third.
I'd give them third.
Third.
And it's one of those too. You look at their average margin of defeat; it's probably single digits when you're.
Yeah, it was pretty close. Yeah, because they had I think a 7-6 loss.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it last night. They had a couple of close games early. They did they're playing in a big conference and in a big city. They did have a couple of games that kind of got out of hand, but that was probably around this area in Upper East Tennessee. That was an 8-2 football.
That's what I was about to say. You could probably flip the record, but
you could.
Unfortunately for them, they're playing in Knoxville, which is a hotbed for high school football in the state of Tennessee.
Exactly.
I talk about how East Tennessee's a great place too, but Knoxville, you've just got a lot of better talent. You might have some better teams in East Tennessee, but the talent in Knoxville, you have so much.
Well,
because you have so many. You have like 20 high schools in Knoxville.
I know.
The talent's all split up, and they grow up playing, put football together their whole lives, grow up playing against each other. The organized leagues over there too. I mean.
And being close to the University of Tennessee, a lot of those schools have got ex-Tennessee football players as coaches, assistant coaches, teachers, principals, and they just, they bring the best out in the talent. They really do. And they have a talent pool, and a lot of those schools are a little bit bigger than most. So you're looking at a school that usually fields, in this area, may field 60 ball players. Well, that school is 20% bigger.
Yep.
So they're going to bring out an extra 12, 14 ball players. So they're dressing at 75. And that attrition rate over the course of many years, build winning programs.
Knoxville football is crazy too. That's one of the things that I'm not as in touch with, but it's cool to kind of pay attention to it and see, because I get confused with so many teams and what classifications they're in. And
I do too. And they're back and forth.
Yep.
They're back and forth, especially when the TSSA's got these new guidelines. You'll see a team like Alcoa. It's like 3 players or 3 students under the limit. Is that an accident?
It's a 3A football team that can beat 6A football teams.
Exactly.
They
have to go to New York to find somebody to play.
Yes, because nobody will play them.
Yeah.
And you got teams that Greenville faces the same thing.
Well, Greenville's a little bit different. They don't dodge anybody. Never have, never will.
That's why they scheduled each other.
That's why they scheduled each other.
More afraid.
Exactly.
That's why they got each other on the schedule too. Want to give credit to the touchdown scores real quick too that we talked about with those 1, 6, 7, and 30 yarders. You had Carson Quillen with the 2 1-yard touchdowns.
Both of those were out of the Wildcat.
That's true.
Both of them were out of the Wildcat.
You've seen that a lot recently. Also, you had Caden Ball get a 6-yard touchdown.
Caden Ball came in. It was by design. It was on the 3rd drive, and I'm trying to get inside Coach Bradlin's head here but he knows at some point this year or next he's going to need that kid in a game situation.
And you've seen him
not in mop-up, in a game situation. And yeah, he has been in a couple of game situations this year, so he's getting him some very good experience out there in the game situation. Yeah, he plays a lot in the 4th quarter,
but it's perfect to get him in the first half of a playoff game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, got his feet wet, so to speak.
Because it could potentially be him next year in this position.
It should be, and everybody knows the most popular kid in school
is the quarterback.
Is the backup quarterback.
Oh, really? You think it's the backup?
It's the backup quarterback. Oh yeah, because when everything's going fine, your quarterback's good. But the minute things turn south, you need to change quarterbacks. That's what every fan thinks. We need to change quarterbacks. So the most popular kid in school is the backup quarterback.
But the backup quarterback didn't end up scoring that 6-yard touchdown. And then you had Emmanuel Dixon and Bryson Myers, the 2 other runners that we talked about. Their hard work got paid off with the 7-yard and 30-yard touchdowns. And that's something that you've seen.
They played linebacker.
Yes.
You got linebackers running the football.
Ways, yeah.
Yes.
And it's good to see that, because that's one thing I talk about with Coach Spradlin every week. You like to establish the run game. And my goodness, I don't know the last time they've had a passing touchdown. You had one last week, courtesy of Carson Quillen, but a lot of the times you're going to hand the ball off when you get into the red zone.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have that wildcat formation like you have with Carson Quillen, seeing him run the ball up and down the field for 100-plus yards every game, you're going to key in on him and think he's running the ball and something like that. So it's a smart move.
Exactly.
You got to give him credit because they expect him to run the ball, and that leaves somebody open at all times. And he ended up running it this week, ended up passing it last week.
It was like Coach Bradlin told me last night. He said, you got 3 running backs in there at 200 pounds apiece, pounding on you. Most schools have got running backs, 160, 175, biggest one. So you're seeing, Manuel Dixon, 6 foot, 200 pounds, linebacker, running the football with wide receiver speed. Why not run him?
And it's good to give Carson Quillen that break.
And Carson Quillen, the same thing. He may be not as tall and as thick, but the kid's got a nose for the end zone. He's got a nose for football.
Correct.
He's just got a nose for football. I would bet you he could kick a field goal.
He probably could.
I'd bet you. I'd be willing to bet you one Saturday morning we could go out here and line him up at the 30-yard line and he kicks a field goal.
He probably could.
I bet Carson, if you're listening, you want to take us up on this?
But when you got a kicker like Quentin Brandon, though,
no, you don't need.
You're very fortunate,
right?
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to kick.
That's correct. I want to mention that real quick. We didn't have a show last week, but if you want to recap on all those games, you can go back and watch all the coaches shows that were done this week. But before we go into the break, let's talk about that win over Elizabeth and how crucial and how huge was that.
I'm not going to say it was the biggest win in school history.
No, it's not one, but it's a huge win.
It was a huge win.
3 years in a row now.
Yep. And they've ended each other's season more than once.
Yes. And
it still could happen again this year.
I was about to say, you could potentially be looking at that in 2 weeks. Got Gibbs next week. That's who their opponent will be at home at Burley Stadium on Friday night at 7 o'clock, before I forget to mention that. And you could potentially be looking at Elizabethton or Anderson County the week after. Greenville's not going to be looking ahead too much because you've got Gibbs.
Coach Bradlin told me last night it's a one-game season here on out.
Exactly.
He said, we don't care who week after next is. He said, we're focused on whoever they put in front of us this week.
As a coach and a player, you got to have that mindset.
You have
Fortunate for us as media and as fans, you start to look at some of those matchups, but everybody, even the players and the coaches, have that little small thought every now and then, like, we got Alco, or we got Anderson County or Elizabethton coming up soon if we win this game. But I think that gives you extra motivation to get through Gibbs. You can't look too far ahead, but at the same time, if you get through
Gibbs was down by 10 points in the fourth quarter last night and came back and won in overtime.
What was the score in the fourth? 24?
It was 21 to 10, I think.
I remember it was 14-13 at the half.
Okay, maybe it was 21-13. No, it was. They were down by double digits in the fourth quarter and won.
Crazy ending to that game too.
Yeah, it was.
That was probably one of the probably the craziest.
And they hit a field goal to tie the game, a 40-yarder late.
And there was and then they blocked Northview's potential game-winning field goal. Or no,
it was an extra point to win.
That's it. Yes. I think Northview blocked their potential game-winning field goal, and then they blocked Northview's game-tying PAT. I think that's what it was. Don't quote me on that. I think that's correct.
I think you're right.
There was a lot of playoff football to try to keep up with last night. Even though we don't do 5, 6A football, it's cool to still pay attention to that when it comes to playoff time too. But crazy night all around. That was probably the craziest one you had. Greeneville is the one team moving on for us, as we mentioned. We've got Gibbs coming up too.
And let's do a shout out to Bryson Myers. That kid, he came in when the ball kid came in at running back. So you're sitting there with a backup quarterback. You have to call him a third string running back, but he's not a third string running back. He carried the ball three consecutive times and got the ball down inside the red zone. And Ball's touchdown warrant was not a called.
Oh, it was a scramble.
It was a kind of a read option scramble. But he had no trouble. Once he decided to tuck it and run, he had no trouble getting in the end zone. He did have to make a little spin move, but he
makes it look even better.
The kid's got a little talent back there. He's got some wheels. He can throw the ball a little bit, and props to Coach Bradlin getting him in the ball game, getting him some game time experience. I don't think he took a big hit or anything like that, so he didn't get woke up.
Yeah,
but he was probably looked like he was awake when he got into the game. So
excited to see what the future holds for him. Excited to see what the future holds for Greeneville football, as we've got Gibbs this week. Moving on, now there's 16 teams left in 3A now. Got a lot of good matchups coming up now, because when you get down to the last 16 teams, you're facing some pretty good competition.
There's some pretty good competition out there then, right.
You still look, you've got, as we mentioned, Gibbs coming up. On the other side, you could potentially be seeing Anderson County or Elizabethton. You make it through that, you could potentially be seeing Upperman in a top 4 matchup. And then if you go to the championship game, it's Pearl Cone or Hardin Valley. I mean, you've got some.
No, they're playing in
great
Chattanooga this year.
Yes.
All right, so
Good
Greeneville
news
will
is
not
Greeneville
see.
will not go on the road
Right.
until they go to Chattanooga, if that's
Right.
the case.
Right.
They host all the way through. So if they were fortunate enough to go to the semifinals, you're hosting Upperman, who the last that I saw, I think, was ranked second in the state in Class 3A, one spot ahead of Greenville. So you can't really look at those rankings.
But those rankings, this
They're a
time
little
of the year,
skewed.
throw them out the window.
That's correct.
It's a one-game season.
That's correct. But the fortunate part is you get to host that.
Right. That's the good
They
part.
come to you.
They come to you, regardless what they're ranked, what you're ranked. Right now, I'm sure Coach Spradlin, if he was holding a team meeting in here right now, he'd tell these guys our record is 0-0
Every week.
every week.
Every week up to this point. It's a 5-game season, now down to a 4-game season with that win. Got that win over Fulton, 48-14. Moving on to face Gibbs now. We'll take a short break before we cover all the other area teams, and we'll be right back after these messages here on Grassroots Media.
At Corner Pond, the friendly and knowledgeable staff has the experience necessary to help you out regardless the need. Have an item of value you'd like to pawn or sell? Corner Pond can help. They pawn numerous items of value, including firearms, tools, ammunition, silver, coins, and much more. When you walk through their doors, you'll find well-stocked shelves full of electronics, gaming systems, fishing and hunting equipment, car audio and accessories. And don't forget about the room full of guitars and basses and amplifiers, or their outside lawn and garden equipment. Corner Pond is a case knife dealer and carries numerous used knives as well. Stop by and let the friendly staff at Corner Pond help you today at 432 East Bernard Avenue, Greeneville, Tennessee.
Pizza Inn offers contactless buffet to go with JoJo's Family Feast or anything on our menu for carryout. We also honor birthday parties and cater to businesses and large events. We make it easy. Call us today. Pizza Inn Greeneville.
Tommy's Plumbing has provided professional plumbing services to the residents of Greeneville, Tennessee for over 30 years. Our experience and reputation have helped us grow our business to add locations in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Tommy's Plumbing is local and family owned, and we offer a full line of plumbing services, such as kitchen faucet, shower faucets, commodes, and bathroom faucets, as well as drain cleaning. We also provide outside plumbing work, such as septic and sewer drain cleanouts, as well as repair and replace. Tommy's Plumbing pretty much does it all. Tommy's Plumbing is licensed, bonded, and insured. Our quality workmanship and passion to provide our clients with expert service is second to none. We guarantee we have the best warranty around. For all your plumbing needs, give Tommy's a call at 638-3662.
Welcome back to Grassroots Media, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. Once again, I'm your host, Tyler, here with my co-host again this week, Mark Brooks. Mark, how's the pizza tasting this morning?
Pizza's awesome.
It's just your basic breakfast pizza, but you can't go wrong with
I don't
that.
know if it's basic or not. I
I
guess
guess it's your three meat. Yeah, it's your three meat. You got
it's a little more than
sausage.
basic. You got sausage on it,
Bacon,
hamburger,
ham.
bacon. Yeah, wouldn't kill them to put a little egg on it. I think you can request.
You got a little
that.
bit of egg on there. Just a tad. Just a tad. It's not as much.
I would request more.
I do like egg on there.
Yeah,
I
but
do
yeah,
like
they'll
egg
make
on
you
there.
one up. Just request whatever you want.
That's true. You can come in here and get whatever you want. As you know, if you've watched this before, we've gotten almost everything on it
Yes,
before.
we have.
Olives, mushrooms, green peppers, onions, the three meats.
Run it through the garden.
eggs, literally, just run it through. Whatever you got on there, just
Right.
throw it on
I don't
there.
know if it's run it through the garden or run it through the kitchen.
Just anything, just whatever you got back there, just toss a little bit on there and spread it in there. But Kyle, thank you once again for letting us come through here. Try the breakfast pizza if you've not yet. Come in here and enjoy some with us. You know, we wouldn't mind having an audience. We're here in the party room, so
That's right.
we've had some before. We've had coaches come in
And,
here.
you know, I think we ought to try to do that in basketball
We could.
because
Tip-off
basketball's
show
around
is
the
coming
corner.
soon. We'll probably have one more kickoff show next week with Greeneville, and I guess we'll use that as kind of the intro into the tip-off show because, as we mentioned, don't have any other teams playing besides Greeneville now, so we'll kind of use that as an intro to basketball in the
And, you know,
second half next week.
They got to start practicing October 1st.
That's true.
So
I think
practice is in full swing
not
right
next
now.
week, but week after, you're going to have the Hall of Fame games. Mm-hmm. So by the time we sit in here next Saturday, the very next show 2 weeks from now will probably be the first tip-off show.
Yep.
Basketball season, my favorite time of the year. Can't beat football season. Football season's just a different
I like
atmosphere, a different vibe.
I like them all.
I do too. But basketball, I love basketball. It's just a sport I've enjoyed watching the most. It's a sport I understand the most. And it's a sport that I grew up liking the most and I enjoy watching. But let's get on to some football before we get tangled up in basketball too much. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, had three other teams competing last night. All three teams took a loss on the road. You had South Green going to Bledsoe County, making that long road trip. You had Chucky Doak going to Alcoa, and you had North Green going to Oliver Springs. All three took a loss. South Green lost 42-21. Chucky Doak lost 56-6, and then North Green lost 48-0. We'll touch on South Green first.
How was that? An 8-2 team has to go on the road. I know.
What a turnaround Happy Valley had to, because I don't think you can talk about South Green's season without mentioning Happy Valley, just because you have that loss that really put them back at the 3 seed.
Yeah, you put them behind the 8 ball, and they were just and there was no battling their way out of it.
No,
you can't win your way out of that.
You had to beat Hampton to get your way out, but if you beat Happy Valley beforehand, then you're in the 2 seed no matter what. But
yeah, that was the difference of going 3 games deep in the playoffs and going home. You know, and a lot of it's due to injuries.
And that's what I was going to mention. You look at Tate's article that he wrote this morning, and you read what Sean said. It was a season of you're going to be asking yourself, what if?
What if?
At the end of the season, you're always going to be asking yourself, what if?
Well, it's not really what if, because if you say what if, to me, you're almost laying blame somewhere, and there is no blame to go around.
Okay.
It just way happens.
It's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
It's football. People get hurt. Look, like last year when Hendon Hooker got hurt. To me, he was probably a lock for the Heisman, and Tennessee was probably a lock for the playoffs. He got hurt. They lost a game. He didn't get any Heisman. His draft stock fell. It's the nature of the beast.
But what could have been different if South Green stayed healthy too? Like you said, injuries happen.
Yeah.
You can't help it. But man, they had such a tough time with the injury bug at the end of the year. You have your star running back and your number 1 option at receiver get hurt. And then once you get those 2 back, your starting quarterback gets hurt. It's just a tough last, what was that, 4 weeks of football for South Green?
You look at it here, you can have the best wide receiver in the country. And if you got a guy that's playing out of position trying to get him the ball, he's not going to do it like a quarterback does. He may play admiral at that position and do great, but he's not. The connection all year long was not there.
Yeah.
If they given him a little bit more time, the connection would have probably been there. But the kid played great. He did everything that was asked of him by the coaching staff and by the players. But the connection just wasn't there yet. They haven't had time to gel.
Yeah.
If he'd have played there all year long, we're probably looking at a different scenario.
It was good to see them both back, though. Each had 10-yard touchdowns. T.J. Butner, of course, being a receiving touchdown. Nash Rader being a rushing touchdown. Connor Ray stepped in at quarterback, too. Had a good game still. He was 11 for 16, 119. Excuse me, I knew that was coming. 119 yards passing, 2 touchdowns through the air, and then 28 rushing yards. He had a good game at quarterback.
He did more than what was asked of him.
Yes, he did way more than what was asked of him. In some games this year, he probably had more yards than they had passing earlier in the year. But it was just defense and just trying to stop that run game. Allowing 351 yards on the ground with that wing T offense. They just couldn't get the defense off the field. And when you're facing such a potent running attack like that, you know it as well as I do. That clock just ticks and ticks and ticks.
It ticks super fast when
it does.
When you're trying to play catch up. It looks like it's in double speed.
It literally never stops.
Yeah.
Unless you go out of bounds, it literally never stops.
Right, and it's it's just hardening for the players, the coaches, the fans. Unfortunately, it's a game that somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, especially in the playoff. Years ago, we had regular season games end in ties.
Yep.
And I was kind of in favor of the tie, but I'm kind of in favor of the win. But in the playoffs, you got to have a winner and you got to have a loser. And unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast, and that's why we go on is to find out who the best team in the state is. And there's been a lot of teams that have won state championships that didn't deserve them because they played a team that lost players. Now, I'm not saying Bledsoe County didn't deserve this win because they were playing I don't know, a depleted South Green team.
But there's an opportunity, or not an opportunity.
But if they would have played South Green
full
at full strength, I think we're looking at a different game.
And there's a chance too, earlier in the year, like I mentioned, you beat Happy Valley, then you may not even go to Bledsoe County.
Right.
And you sent Happy Valley down there, but that's just, like you said, the nature of the beast, and that's just how the season goes sometimes. I want to give credit to Trey Gentry also. He had that 66-yard receiving touchdown. Can't remember which touchdown it was, too, but he set one of those 10-yard touchdowns up with that long kickoff return. He had a breakout season this year, too, from the opening game against Crockett, scoring a touchdown, to scoring one in the very last game against Bledsoe County. He made tremendous plays all year. He made a tremendous leap this year.
And this was a 5-5 team last year, right?
Yes, they did finish 5-5.
All right, let's throw something out here. Sean Jones bringing that team to 8-2 regular season.
5-5 regular season. I remember that. I think they did get up to 6 wins. I think they finished 6-6.
Didn't they win a playoff game?
Yes, they beat Rockwood last year.
Okay.
But credit to them because look at the
going
turnaround.
From 5-5 to 8-2. That's a turnaround.
The turnaround from the Johnson County win, I believe, because you had that stretch where they lost to West Green, Chucky Doak, and Hampton in like 3 to 4 weeks.
Right.
They started the season, I believe, 2-5, won 3 straight to finish the year. I think it was North Green, Johnson County, and Seymour. And then they turn around, go into the playoffs, get a win against Rockwood, made it 4 in a row, had their season ended last year, and then started this season with that great 6-0 stretch before the injuries happened, and you're still in the season at 8-3.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for. Well, you could ask for a better one, but they did a fine job.
They did a really good job.
They did a fine job.
Unfortunately, I have to put a cap on their season too. They finished at 8-3, 3-2 within their conference this year. Finished 3rd within the conference, and then get eliminated in round 1. Looking forward to the next year though. They've got a lot of starters coming back too. You've got Jacob Susong back. You've got Nash Rader back. You've got Trey Gentry back. You've got a lot of that line back.
That's a pretty good nucleus to work around.
They do. You're graduating Buckner, so there goes that big offensive threat. But you've got Gentry, who we mentioned.
And don't forget, now Buckner was a player of the
year
in basketball last year.
Yeah.
So that kid's an athlete.
Athlete everywhere.
You get him out there on a soccer field, and he's probably going to play.
Probably could.
I don't know. Tennis, I wouldn't want to play him in tennis.
He's long, so yeah, he'd probably be able to get to it. He'd cover some ground pretty well. Looking forward to their season next year, though. Expect them to be right back, potentially hosting a playoff game next year with the talent they've got coming back. And if they were able to stay healthy, moving on, got Chucky Doak. Tough spot they had last night.
Chucky Doak
have to go down to Alcoa.
See, that shouldn't happen. What was Chucky Doak's final record?
Final record this year was 6-5, 6-4 going into this
6-4.
year.
You got a 6-4 team going to play Super Bowl champions.
How many years is it now? 8?
8, I think.
8 years in a row. That's just, and it's like I mentioned to Coach Keller this week. When's the last time they've lost a game within Class 3A?
Oh, I couldn't.
Yeah. That's not a question we could try to answer because we would
within
be searching
3A 9 years ago. That's the state title.
You'd be correct, yeah. So it's been that long. To try to do that being a county school that isn't on their level, like talent-wise, that's a tough matchup to go into. Mm-hmm. Because you know the pedigree that they have.
And they got some ball players out there.
They do, and that's the sad part about it.
That's what I'm saying is that's a real good football team. They've got a real good quarterback, a real good running back, a real good wide receiver.
One of the winningest classes.
That's a real good football team, and they got to travel 80 miles to play the state champions in the first round of the playoffs.
One of the winningest classes in Chucky Doak. You'd have to go back and look. I can't remember off the top of my head how many wins, but, I mean, credit to them. I mentioned that this week. Coach Kaler and I talked about it. I want to give them credit one more time before we put a final cap on their season. What a resilient senior class, because
did they make the playoffs 4 years in a row?
They did. And how often can you do that with 4 different head coaches?
Oh, gosh. That's
Coach Murphy. You have Coach Ripley. You have Coach Kirkendall. And then you have Coach Kaler. You have 4 different coaches in 4 seasons. You make the playoffs, I believe, every single year. And you still end up being one of the winningest programs despite having a different head coach every year, because you finished with 6 wins this year. You finished with 10 wins last year. The year before, I believe
that's
they
on the
also
players.
had 6.
That's on the players.
Exactly.
That's on them.
Well, I mean,
They just showed they can play under anybody.
we talked about it. The talent that they had to Brazen Mervin, Brock Rush, Isaiah Treadway. You have that 3-headed monster out there on offense who also double, and a lot of them play defense too.
Well, again, they're a 3A school, which is generally,
You've got
smaller,
players playing both sides.
and you probably got 40 to 90% of them playing both ways. Now, Alcoa, you probably don't have 10% of them play both ways.
We could get into that, but I'd prefer not to. Unfortunately, they went down there 56-6 was the final score of that game. They didn't do a bad job stopping the run. I think I read 16 rushes for 90 yards. That's not a bad average.
That's not a. You hold a team under 100-yard rushing
in a whole game, that's good.
And the state champion, the 8-time state champion,
who'll potentially go to be 9 this year. Yes. But what did hurt them was the passing game, though. Eli Graff, amazing quarterback. He's also
Have
one
you
of them.
seen the kid play?
I've seen the kid play football, and I've seen the kid play basketball. He's very good at both. Just like we had mentioned with Buckner, he is an athlete.
He's very good at ball. And they got this tight end that looks like he's ready to suit up for the Cowboys.
He will be D1. He will be Power 5.
Oh, yeah. Alabama, that is number 1 on his list.
He visited Columbus a month ago.
Ooh.
Visited Ohio State. He's got a lot of offers. You'll see a lot of those kids from that Alcoa team.
Like 8 foot tall, 390 pounds or something.
Well, my goodness, it feels like we've been talking about him for 5 years now. Because he's been a starter for so many years at Alcoa now, but decorated career that a bunch of those boys
He's a big kid. What is he, 6'5", 270?
I don't know exactly, but he's a big guy.
He's a man among boys.
He is. Going over Chucky Doak one last time, too. A 13-yard touchdown pass from Palazzo to Treadway. That's their last score of the year. The last thing I'll touch on with Chucky Doak, too, we talked about how resilient the class was, the talent that they had. What records do they have? Because you look back at some of these, I think Isaiah Treadway has the career touchdown reception record now. I think Brazen Mervin has the career rushing yardage, single game rushing yards.
He got that single.
Season.
He got the single game in his sophomore year.
He was close.
That's right. He was close. He got hurt. But it's like 8 minutes to go,
and they wouldn't let him
back in the game.
Your article was where I figured it out, because you said in that West Green game 2 years ago he had 324 yards, was 6 short of the record of 330. I asked Coach Kaler. He didn't 100% confirm, but he was very sure the record was either 331 or 334. Didn't matter. He got 335 against Union Weekend.
Okay, so he's
single game record. Pretty sure he has single season career rushing yards record.
I can't run 300 yards now without the football.
He's had 300-yard games.
And
let that sink in.
Well, the kid, I look at him eye to eye. So he's 6 foot ish, 200 pounds, runs pretty good. He's a running back. That's all you can say. He's a prototypical size running back. If somebody's not looking at this kid, they're not looking in the right place.
I can't remember the exact number. Coach Keller and I counted it up this week. It's in the teens of Chucky Doak players that have went on to play collegiate football. I don't know if you'll see any of those 3 make it to the collegiate level, but I mean, just being able to watch, I think you could put Rush, Treadway, and Mervin somewhere.
Yes.
I think you can fit them on a D2, D3 squad somewhere. They can play football.
Everybody's goal is to make it to the NFL. Yes. I know that. I understand that. And that's a lofty goal to have. But if somebody's going to pay for your education just because you can run a football, go.
Take it.
Go take it. Yes. Because, there's nothing wrong with being a software engineer or mechanical engineer or some kind of scientist,
paid for.
And there's somebody's paying for going to college, take it.
Yep.
I don't care where it's at. If it's at some little university in South
Delaware.
Florida, or Delaware,
go do it.
That's got 19 students and 23 football players, take it.
Take it.
Take it. And run.
What a fun group to watch.
Exactly.
Just like we've said with some of these Chucky Doak players the last few years with Caden Tollett, Rio Little, and some of them last year, Dylan Sheldon that graduated on last year's squad, you're going to say the same thing about this squad. Ultra talented squad, going to miss that 3-headed monster. Nick Palazzo, great senior season, and this is his only year as a starter too. They finished their season at 6-5 with a 2-3 record within the conference. Moving forward now, North Green last night. They travel down to Oliver Springs. On the losing side of things, 48-0. They end their season with a 4-7 record, 3-2 within conference. You look at that and you think 4-7, not ideal. It's a losing
4-7.
season. But you look back,
but they're like 3 plays away. Or that was 4-6 regular season, so they were like 3 plays away from being 6-4.
and you think like not
Really?
ideal losing record. You look back on it, this team is tied for I think the 3rd winningest program in history, or 3rd winningest team.
It's a very small school.
One team went 6-5. 2 or 3 teams, Coach Tilson said, won 5 games, and this is only the 5th team to win 4. So this is one of the winningest teams to walk through the school.
I mean,
And you're like you said, you're 3, 4, 5 plays away in that Cumberland Gap game and that Jellicoe game to being a 6-win team. And
You're talking one of those games, they didn't give up a touchdown.
They can give up an offensive touchdown.
Right. And lost. You know, so the defense is.
It's another one of those, like we mentioned with South Green, like what if? Because you take away, you redo 5 or 6 of those plays, you stop 2 of those runs in the Cumberland Gap game, you take away those 2 defensive touchdowns in the Jellicoe game, you could be 6-5, 2nd in the conference, hosting a playoff game, checking off almost every preseason box of what they wanted to do. But
exactly.
it's just those plays.
And you know, Coach Tilson out there, you know, he's done a great job.
What a program changer!
Exactly. With
3 straight years.
You're
in the
talking about the
playoffs.
smallest school in the county. You know, very little resources because they're the smallest school because that's the way they divvy out the resources by the size of them. It's just he went into an impossible situation and made it possible.
And look what he's done so far too. I don't know much about North Green's program history, but I'd like to see how many times they've made it to the playoffs 3 years in a row. This might be the only
That
time.
might be. I don't know.
This might be the only time. I could probably look back at it real quick because I know that I have.
I know my wife went to school there, and she said that they had a team called the Dirty Dozen where they actually had 12 players.
No way. The team had 12 players.
Not to start, but by the end of the year.
That's
Now,
impressive.
this is back in, I ain't going to say what year, but back in the day.
So it's been a while.
It's been a
You'll
while.
say that. It's been a while for sure. I know it's somewhere in here. I remember taking a picture of their playoff appearances that they have there in the clubhouse too. Right here. 92, 97, 01, 02, 03, 04. So they made it 4 years in a row. And then 2011, they've got to update this board because since the last time they've updated it, they're missing 3 now. Only the 2nd time that they've made it 3 years in a row. And get this, they've only made it 10 times to the playoffs.
And Tilson's done 3 of those.
Tilson's done 3 in his 3 years.
Yeah.
Talk about a
He's
program
3 for
changer.
3.
He is.
3 for 3.
Amazing job that he's done so far there.
He has, and he's got some kids out for football that normally wouldn't come out for football. You know, and that's why they're, you know, they're only dressing 28, 29, 30 ball players. But like I said, you know, back in the day, you know, in the teens or less. You know, so yeah, he's done
Starting to see better talent out there on the field. too.
Exactly. And that's
He's good at producing talent. too.
and that carries on. And I didn't not into this football, but you know, you pick up a couple of extra baseball players, an extra basketball player, somebody else that can play volleyball, you know, on the girls' side. It filters down. You know, winning's contagious.
Yep.
Even if and you say, well, 4 wins. Oh no, I've seen years out there where they didn't have one at all.
Look at what they did last year. I mean, you only get 1 win last year. You turn around this year and you get 4. Who's not
That's a
saying you get 5
turnaround.
next year? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to build on that success, and they've got the opportunity to do that next year. Their senior class too, unfortunately, stepping onto the field for the last time. Grayson Collins, Colton Robbins, Nick Mitchell, Glenn Swatzel, and Caleb Fields. Those were the 5 seniors. They all had an emotional moment on the field last night too after it was over. It's always emotional, that last game. It's like I told Coach Tilson the last few years. I covered their last game last year against Coalfield, did it again this year at Oliver Springs, and I even said it first thing. I was like, Coach, you know as well as I do, this is your least favorite interview. This is my least favorite interview. You always hate the end of the season interviews, but I mean, you got to talk about those seniors and everything they've done for the school. Those 5 names right there, you can't talk about North Green football without mentioning them.
And and you say that was, you know, hard on you, and it was hard on Tilson. I'm gonna give him a prop right now because I know he's felt crap. You know, losing stinks, for lack of a better term.
Oh, yeah.
And
Especially a game that you probably felt like you could go in and really compete with.
right, and but not only is that his last year, football season's over.
Mm-hmm.
But a good thing is he can focus on next year. Normally we don't focus on the upcoming things, past tomorrow, past next week. But he has the luxury of having almost a whole year ahead to look at and build and see what he can come up with next year. And that's why he had 3 more wins this year than he did last year.
And credit to those seniors, the foundation that they've laid was something that he mentioned too.
Yes.
Because like I said, you can't talk about North Green football without talking about them. Think of it. Grayson Collins, what he had to endure. He went from being a receiver to a quarterback, never have been a quarterback before, and then back to a wide receiver, also being their punter. And then you have Colton Robbins, incredible season he had. You look back at that Unaka game. Like I said, don't know North Green's history very well, but I will confidently say that's one of the best games you've ever seen in a green uniform.
That was probably the best second half of defense.
I mean, you had 2 pump
seen.
blocks, the touchdown call back, the 2-point conversion.
Touchdown in the end zone.
Yes, he had another one too. Yes, he had that
sack in the
strip
end
fumble.
zone.
He was the one who stripped it and jumped on
recovered it. Yeah.
Amazing game by him.
And he's his senior season. That's something he's going to tell his grandchildren about, and they're going to say, "Oh, Papa, you're crazy," and he'll say, "No,
We've got the film.
We got the film. Look
Yes.
at grassroots."
Hit me up. I've got the film. I'll always have it too. I always try to keep everything. But you look back, it's like the other players too. Nick Mitchell. You go back to the year we started doing extra media in 2021. He was the second player that we gave Player of the Week to. Might have been the first.
He
I
was
can't
second.
remember.
Ethan Turner was first.
You're correct. 'Cause you did it that week.
Well, actually, I did the North Green one when Mitchell got it the next week.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was the one that set the tone for the game with a safety.
Yep. And then he had
From
a
his defensive, well, not from a defensive end position, but from a defensive back.
Was that Castlewood?
Was it Castlewood? When was the last time you ever seen a defensive back on a blitz in the end zone?
Not often. Not often.
No, and and again, that's another thing. You'd ever thought of that, and so Tilson drew this play up. I'm sure somewhere in his head he's drew it up, and thought, well, one of these days I'm gonna be able to blitz my defensive back on the end zone, and then lo and behold, what's he do? Blitzes his defensive back in the end zone and gets the safety. And Nick, I think he had a couple picks that game, a couple other big plays.
That's another
that got
great
him to play
defensive
the
game. We talk about
Yeah.
Colton Robbins. That was another great one too. Earned him Player of the Week.
That Colton, he should.
I think that put everybody's attention on Nick too, because after that game, you didn't hear a lot of interceptions, this and that. But you go through film, man, they weren't targeting his way.
Why would you throw the ball his way?
That's what Coach Tilson talked about, and that's one thing I thought about. I was like, man, I hadn't heard Nick Mitchell's name a lot after he had that amazing game in week 2, and then you look back and you're like, man, they just don't throw it his way. Yeah,
Well, yeah.
He shuts everybody
Why
down.
would you want to do that?
Yeah.
On a quarterback, why would you want to throw it number 4's way? Because he's either going to knock it down or he's going to catch it.
Or he's going
Yeah, or he might blitz you and knock you down.
a low percentage of the time, it's probably going to be a catch.
Yep. So normally, we see this with defensive backs when they don't have very many interceptions, and they don't have very many tackles. That means it's got what they call a shutdown corner.
Yep. A lot of the times, some of the ones that have the least stats are the better ones.
Exactly.
That's hard to wrap your head around, too. You see the players that have the high interception totals, and you're like, that's the better corner right there. But sometimes it's the ones they never go to. That's the cool part about the cornerback position. Sometimes the ones with the least amount of stats are the better ones, just because they don't target you.
Right.
That's why you got to look through the extra film. Who have they targeted the least amount of times?
Right. Why would you want to go to that side?
The last 2 seniors on that team also, Caleb Fields, great defensive player. Kicker also, saw him get on the field some, kick some extra points. He's had some key tackle for losses this year too. And then Glenn Swatzel, unfortunately didn't get to see him play a lot. Coach Tilson mentioned that they finally found him a position on the field. He was finally going to get some playing time. Gets hurt first game of the season. But cool part for him is he can say that his last play in high school football was a tackle for loss. That's cool.
Yeah, that's
It's something to remember. Putting a cap on North Green season also, as we mentioned, they finished their year 4-7 with a 3-2 record within the conference. West Green didn't play this week. They were the only team that didn't make it into the playoffs. But we'll touch on them this week, and I'll hand the floor over to you for these last few minutes. You were at that game last week when they played Happy Valley and had a 38-28 loss. But, man, they had some fun last week.
They did have fun. It was a little emotional after the ball game with the seniors. And Coach Monroe told me, he said, every senior scored this year on football. And you're thinking football. Even you had two of them that were offensive linemen.
Correct.
How did
they scored some amount of points?
Yeah.
At some point during their career.
They were in on a scoring play.
Whether it was a 2-point conversion or a touchdown.
Oh no, the touchdown was.
That's one that I want to see.
It was.
I heard about that.
Oh, it's on Facebook.
Okay.
You can. Evan put it up. So if you're not friends with Evan Monroe, look up Evan Monroe on Facebook.
Do you know what the play is called?
I'm gonna think it's called Varsity Blues. That's that's what I'm gonna guess.
The Centel Special.
The Centel Special. Okay, but it puts you back in mind. Remember Varsity Blues?
Correct. Yeah.
When what was the big kid's name? I don't remember.
Billy Bob.
Billy Bob. Right.
Yes, sir.
When Billy Bob caught the touchdown. Well, Centel didn't juggle it. That was the only difference in it, and it was a little bit of a shorter play. And what they did was had the wide receiver disguise a crossing route, and he immediately caught it. 3 steps into his crossing route, and then just flipped it to Centel, and Centel just
hook and ladder,
hook and ladder, and I think I called it rumbled into the end zone or thundered or something, but he lumbered into the end zone, and he lumbered into the end untouched. And of course, it was a happy lineman, a happy group of guys. They had fun.
Lineman's dream.
That's what it's called, the lineman's dream, because every lineman dreams of scoring a touchdown.
And
he got his.
It's a pretty cool story when you hear Coach Monroe talk about it. Go check that out on this week's edition of the Pettit's Market Evan Monroe Show. The last one,
the 2-point conversion.
Yep.
The 2-point conversion. Well, they lined up with Zach Carroll in the pistol, and he ran it in, but there was a penalty.
Got backed up.
So he got backed up.
But you still want to get him in.
But he can't.
So what do you do now? You're not going to want to run it from 8 yards out.
You're talking about a kid that's 6'2", 275 pounds.
So what's your next option?
I don't know what I would have called, but I'm guessing Zach is tickled to death. They told him to throw the ball because he threw an absolute laser pass. That's what it looks like in the stat sheet. It was a laser. Looks like something Joe Montana would throw to Jerry Rice in the end zone. That's all I'm gonna say.
Got his 2 points up there. In that situation, you back him up. Do you allow him to kick? You get points on the board from a field goal.
I don't know. Has he ever tried?
That's the thing. Yeah.
Has he ever tried?
But
now,
like you said, at this point in the season, you've got to win and have some extra help from Eagleton or from Cumberland Gap to beat Eagleton. You go into the game expecting it to be your last game. Why not have some fun? And they did that. You have nothing to lose.
Also, we had a wide receiver throw a touchdown pass in that game.
Bax Britton to Austin Franklin.
Austin Franklin. What happened was, it looked to me like Dawson Daniels was at quarterback. He got hit in a place that will debilitate you for about 3 to 5 minutes. So,
a little shaken up.
So they put Bax Britton in there, and I'm like, they probably just need to run this ball and get it out of bounds or something, try to set up the next play for Daniels coming in. But Britton was like, no, that ain't happening. He said, I'm throwing a touchdown pass. And he did.
One play, didn't it?
One play. He made the most of his quarterbacking career.
That might be the only play he's ever thrown in Hayes. 1 for 1, 100% with a perfect QBR and a touchdown.
Yes, that looked good. Again, it was one of those Montana to Rice passes.
Yes, sir. But a fun game for West Green to close the season.
They had fun.
Yeah. And that's what you want to do in your last game. You look at the scoreboard and you're like, okay, we're down, I think, 28-6 at that time or something like that. And that's when they started to have some fun. Let's get the lineman in there. Bax throws a touchdown. You get the 2-point conversion here and there. Not necessarily in that particular order, but you're down by 3 possessions. your season's looking bleak if you check the score and see that Eagleton is beating Cumberland Gap.
Well, football is a game for fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's a game to have fun. If you win, that just adds to the fun. If you win it all, that just adds to the fun. If you go out there and you're 0-11 and you had fun and you learned something and you made friends for life and all this stuff, you've already won.
And I mean, those are memories you'll have forever. Those fun football games like that. It's like Sullivan East too. I mentioned it with Coach Monroe this past week. Sullivan East might have been a loss on senior night, but you're always going to remember wearing those pink uniforms.
Yeah.
Doing the pink out. You're always going to remember who you played, what night it was, just because of those specific uniforms. Yeah. And it's like we remember some certain games because of some certain uniforms.
Right.
Like last week, Will Levis made his Tennessee Titans debut. You're always going to remember that. You know why?
Because he had on the Houston Oilers uniform.
Yep. You're always going to remember those certain things because of some certain uniforms. I don't know why. It's just
one of those
something
things.
Different.
Right.
Yep.
It's one of those things.
But
and you see it all the time with NFL players. When they open up shoe week. When
you can see the special shoes. Yep.
Special shoes. A lot of those guys remember their game just because of the shoes they wore.
I mean, some games too, like when Michael Jordan had to wear 45, stuff like that. You always remember certain games.
You know why he had to wear the 45?
Jersey was stolen.
Yeah. You know where he bought it at? Foot Locker.
Interesting. But I think that puts a cap on West Green season 2. They finish at 3-7, 1-4 within the conference. Looking forward to next year too. They're losing a lot of talent, but they've got some coming back too. You've got Coach Monroe coming back. I asked him this week. He's staying, so that's good.
Yeah.
He's staying.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have him back next year.
Well, now he's on a quest.
Yes.
He really is. He wants to change
the culture.
The culture and the mentality. So he wants that 50 players out there, 60 players out there. He wants that.
He grew up in this
He grew up in that community and played for West Green.
It's different whenever you don't and you're going to coach Morristown.
In whatever.
Johnson City.
Yeah.
It's different.
Some coaches do it for the money.
Yes.
Some do it for the glory. He does it for the kids.
Because he went to West Green, he grew up in the community, and he loves the community. That puts something special in it too, and you can tell he cares in that sense also.
Mm-hmm. So if he has his way, in 4 years from now, you'll look out and West Green will be dressing out 60.
I hope so.
They'll
I hope you see it.
I think that if he has his way and everything falls into place, they'll be dressing out 60. They'll be contending for regional titles, and they'll be playing football. They're going to have some. He would love to have some upgrades at his facility. In his weight room, his field, in his field house stuff. He would love to have some upgrades there. That would help him out a lot. Because you get a kid that's on the fence whether I want to play football or not, and he goes in there and looks in the weight room and says, I ain't going in there. It's he wants to change the culture and he wants to change the mentality. And I give him all the props in the world.
I hope you see a county game in the next few years where you have North Green and West Green both packing out the sidelines.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the two smallest teams.
Yep.
Those are the ones that don't dress out as much.
Right.
I'd love to see the point where you have 50 players on each sideline and have winning programs.
Oh, I would
be
love
awesome.
it. Yeah.
I hope to see more seasons where you have all 5 teams throughout Greene County and Greenville City go to the playoffs. We had that the first 2 years that we've been a part of this. Unfortunately, West Green didn't get the job done and get in there this year, but you still got the opportunity to do that next year.
We do.
North Green's bringing back a lot of good talent next year, too. They're bringing back a quarterback. They're bringing back a running back. They're bringing back a receiver. You got a lot of talent coming back.
That's a new place to work around.
Yep. Just like South Green. You got basically the same main skill position players on offense coming back and some good players on defense. But
hey, are we giving out a player of the year in Greeneville, Greene County this year?
We will.
Okay.
Be at the Roots Awards.
Who you voting?
Who you vote? I'm going to keep my vote silent at the moment.
I don't know. It'd be hard to place a vote right now.
It is. It would be hard.
It'd be hard to place a vote right now because you got a lot of kids that's done a lot of exceptional things.
You'll have Player of the Year at the Roots Awards. You'll have the Offensive and Defensive Player of the Years. You'll have the All-County team that we do also.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see who gets named on those. Pay attention to those weeks down the road. Don't know when. But it'll be out sometime.
Roots Awards are just once a year.
Well, I'm talking about All-County.
Oh, the All-County team will come out. Usually comes out about 2 weeks after the last game.
Pay attention to that. Potentially be on there, but that's all we've got this week. Mark? appreciate you once again. We'll be back next week to do the kickoff / tip-off show, I guess it
Yes,
is.
basketball season's right around the corner.
It is. We'll preview that next week. Cover Greenville's game against Gibbs. But that's all we got this week. Thank you all for watching this week's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show live here from Pizza Inn in Greenville. Look forward to seeing you next week here on Grassroots Media.